If you're looking for the longest running EOS podcast, you've come to the right place. There is so much going on in the EOS IO ecosystem, and I can't wait to talk to all of you about it today. But before we begin, I just want to call out my sponsor, Cypherglass. Vote for Cypherglass using your favorite wallet or block explorer. And lastly, if you like the show, don't forget to like it, comment, and subscribe if you aren't already.
Welcome back to another episode of Everything EOS, the longest running EOS podcast. Great to see you all joining us again for another week of everything happening in the EOS ecosystem.
A lot going on this week, Rob. It's not the same, though, without you here in person recording.
I know, right? It was a fun episode last week. That was great.
Yeah, so if anyone missed it, last week we talked about the mass adoption that's happening among projects. So we often talk about the user mass adoption to bring in users to use all these applications. But what we've been seeing over the last few weeks is a massive migration of applications from other platforms like Neo, like Ethereum, coming to EOS. So if you want to hear more about that, check out last week's episodes. Rob, you actually had a chance to catch up with the CEO of Effect AI, and you have a video coming out. It might even be out by the time people watch this. How'd that go?
Yes, I have a really cool video coming out that basically just shows their journey. You know, that there's a ton of backstory of the company that a lot of people don't know, that I don't think Chris from Effect AI has really talked about publicly. So we cover a lot of that in the video and kind of go over the story of, how they came up with this idea, how they moved to Neo, why Neo didn't work, and why inevitably they ended up moving to EOS. So I'm super excited for the video. It should be pretty cool. And if it works out, maybe we'll do a series on, other dApps and how they found EOS and how they moved to it as well. So stay tuned for that.
I'm excited for that. I'm always interested in those stories because last week we talked about the human aspect of this. We often say Ethereum projects come to EOS. It's not that easy. They don't just wake up one day and they're like, we can't scale anymore. Let's just switch platforms. It's like a long, drawn out process, and they want to do everything they can to not migrate if they don't have to, because they set the roadmap whenever they launch to do things a certain way, and it's just a problem with all of the extended timelines and false promises, I feel like.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and speaking of projects moving to EOS, we have another project that's moving over to EOS that actually had planned to do a token sale on Ethereum. This was back in 2017. My brother and partner at Cypherglass, Ben, and also partner at EOS Name Service, has worked with this client before, sort of helped them write their white paper, sort of got them into the crypto ecosystem. But it's a company called True Gold that actually owns not just the rights to different mineral deposits, but apparently actually owns different gold mines. So they'll be moving to EOS, bringing their token to EOS, maybe even doing a little token sale on top of EOS as well. So pretty exciting things happening. But what was also cool that wasn't another project being moved, but more of like a concept coming over to EOS was, I'm sure you've seen the Lightning Torch. So the Lightning Network is this sort of second layer of Bitcoin that allows you to open a payment channel with somebody and effectively send a transaction for a very low cost, very, very quickly. So what happened was all of these sort of, crypto influencers had this thing called the Lightning Network Torch, the LN Torch on Twitter, where they were sending it around to all these different people. It went to CZ at Binance. It went to Anthony Pompliano. It went to Jack, the CEO of Twitter, which was pretty cool. So somebody recently, I think it was actually Rude Mudcrab in Telegram.
Shout out to Rude Mudcrab. I didn't know it was him. He started it?
Yeah, that's a conversation I saw about him basically saying that he was the one that started it. So he could have been making a joke that maybe I misunderstood, but it seems like it was him. But he basically made one unique sort of a non-fungible token. The total supply is 1, and you can't divide it. It's not divisible. So there's one Torch token out there that exists that's being passed around between all these different EOS community members, basically to show off the fact that without a payment channel, without a second layer, you can send a transaction on EOS for free and pass the torch for free with a half-second block time. So it kind of shows off the tech. And I was fortunate enough, shout out to Angel, who actually met at the EOS New York event, I believe, passed me the torch, and then I was able to pass it on to Rudy from Mythical Games. And now, the 60-plus people it's gone through, I think it's at Brock Pierce now at his proxy. And Brock has said that he's actually going to pass it on to Dan or Brendan. So super excited that the torch that I managed to have an opportunity to touch will soon be in Dan or Brendan's wallet. So cool to see.
So let's go off script a little bit here, Rob, because the torch thing did have me a little weirded out. And the reason I didn't beg anyone for the torch, I saw everyone begging for it, is what do you think of anonymity on the internet and these types of games? I think most people have multiple accounts. So I know I have multiple accounts. So I think whenever the people were playing this torch game, they were playing with a different account. But
Exactly.
how do you feel about that transparency though with like a public blockchain? It's kind of like you're wearing your bank account on like your outside clothing in a way.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's why it's important to have multiple accounts, and is part of the reason why we started EOS name servers, to make it easy to manage and create a bunch of different accounts for different purposes. But so essentially rob.vr, which is the account that I use to, pass the torch to me, it's the account I use in videos. It's not linked to any of my other accounts in any way, to kind of, keep that bank account transparency, so to speak, or that bank account anonymity rather. So I think it's kind of interesting, and it is something that people need to learn about. Maybe PEOS will help with that if you can do like a private transaction and keep most of your wealth private, but we're not really sure how that works yet. So I don't know. It is definitely an interesting difference of the crypto world compared to the traditional finance world.
And for anyone who's interested in like separating identities, I guess it's not like a verified identity, but anyone who wants to play games like EOS Nights and things like that, but they kind of don't want it tied to everything that they do. Do you want to kind of walk the audience through like the Binance trick? And this doesn't give you complete anonymity if you KYC'd with Binance. They know who you are. The exchanges, as long as you're okay with them knowing who you are, that's okay with most people, I think. If you KYC'd with them, but there is a way to start a new account that's not associated with your old account. It's pretty easy to do.
Yeah, it's something typical that a lot of people do. They use EOS Account Creator, or I think EOS X, so EOS EX, or actually no, EOS X, just the letter .com. That Block Explorer lets you make an account by just sending a payment from any other account. So you can do something like that. It's a trick a lot of people have used to sort of stay anonymous, or pseudo-anonymous in crypto, which is you send your tokens into an exchange and then you send them out to one or multiple wallets to kind of bury the trail. Obviously, the exchange and any regulators that ever audit you are going to know, okay, this is that guy's account. But if you're looking for that anonymity on chain, that's a great way to sort of achieve it.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, though, most people probably aren't even looking and digging into it.
Absolutely.
But I just always think that's a funny topic when it comes to like playing games and using these like public account names. They're all linked somehow.
It is so interesting from a trading perspective also. I know that there are people out there that have different algorithms and bots that, if 1 million EOS get deposited into Binance, they have some trigger that goes off for their bot to, sell EOS before that person that they think might dump it on the exchange is doing that. So because you have this added layer of transparency, it adds so many additional elements to the trading game, particularly algorithmic trading, where you can pull in all of this interesting data, even get sentiment on, the overall market analysis, how many people are unstaking at a time, how many people just staked. There's so much additional data and sort of insight you can glean from this additional layer of transparency that makes things pretty interesting.
It's really interesting. I've actually heard of people with the bots that like watch for the unstaking, because it's kind of like if you have whales unstaking on a particular token and there's whatever there is, a 24 to 3 day unstaking period, you don't want to be left behind and be like a day or two behind in your unstaking just in case. It depends on if you're a trader or not, I guess. It depends on what your motives are and how much risk you're taking on. But Dan's written about this at length, but extreme transparency is the only real way to stop corruption and a lot of unfair practices. So just something most people are familiar with is crypto trading. So people always, in the back of their minds, wonder if like the exchanges could ever be front running them, since they actually see the order books. They know where everyone's stop losses are and limit orders, and they could make the price go up or down because they know the books. So they have what everyone believes to be an unfair competitive advantage. And if they're doing that stuff, which I've no doubt some of them are, then it clear as day is a competitive advantage. But whenever you put all the data on an open public blockchain, it's available to everybody. So we have all of these DEXs coming out that I'm super excited about. EOS Finex being the one I'm, I guess, speaking about directly. But you look at the daily trade volume that a company like Bitfinex has, and then they have this EOS Finex exchange launching. It seems like it's going to be in the next couple weeks, maybe a month or two. Is that kind of the vibe you're getting too on that, Rob?
I think so, yeah. Apparently the beta is supposed to be out here shortly, and we'll be able to see that the platform works entirely on-chain on the EOS mainnet. So I'm super excited about it as well. I can't wait to see what they're using for a Bitcoin peg and an Ethereum peg and all these different things. So there's a lot that goes into the platform.
I've been keeping very close tabs on that. Between the DApp network and EOS Finex, I think those are the two projects I've been watching the most closely, because I'm excited about what they're bringing to the table.
Yeah.
What have you been excited about, Rob? You're excited about like everything, but is anything new? And so no talking Pixios, no D-Goods. What's new and exciting for you?
Honestly, the stuff that we're working on at EOS Name Service, it goes so far beyond just EOS accounts. Like it honestly goes beyond the existing EOS ecosystem, and there will be people that have never even heard of EOS, don't even know they're using a blockchain, that will use some of the stuff that we're coming out with in the relatively near future. So I've just been so excited about that. We did recently, of course, come out with .art as a new suffix. So you can register 1 to 7 character names for .art. I got rob.art as an example. But that is available now. But what I'm so excited about more than the names that are coming out and the more names that we have already lined up to release on the platform soon, I'm just excited about the stuff that we're building. So I can't wait until I can talk more about it. Unfortunately, I can't share it now, but there's a lot that's going on behind the scenes.
I think we have that trait in common because I met with my team earlier this week in person, and I'm absolutely stoked for what we have in the pipeline as well, and I can't wait to share more information.
A lot of people don't know. Zach Gall right here, he's part of a company called Dappiness that is actually building different dApps, I think centered mostly around games on EOS. So I'm super excited to play those as well once they're finally out. But there's a lot of stuff happening behind the scenes, not just with projects we're working on, but projects that our friends and colleagues and other people in the industry are working on. In summary, there is so much being built on EOS right now. It's kind of crazy.
It's time to build. Yep. I told you we're not allowed to talk about D-Goods before, but now we could talk about D-Goods because it's the next thing in the notes. So they put out a blog post, and D-Goods is like a team of Mythical Games is leading the charge on it, but it's a group of different projects and companies. Cypherglass is one of them. EOS Lynx is part of it. Scatter. So it's a pretty. ITM Games actually just joined the D-Goods initiative also. So that was news.
Huge news
last week. Yeah. We'll get into ITM Games later because they have some exciting stuff coming out as well. But D-Goods, they put out just like a release update explaining some of the things that they've built recently for their most recent release of D-Goods. But the one thing that stood out to me is something that hasn't really been talked about, or that I at least haven't talked about before, and that's semi-fungible tokens. So you want to explain what that is and why they're needed?
Yeah, so when D-Goods first came out, it was all about NFTs, non-fungible tokens. And shortly after that, a non-fungible token is something unique. If there's only one of these monster cans in the world, or only one of these flamethrowers in the world, there's one token that represents that. That's an NFT. The torch that's being passed around on EOS is a great example of a truly non-fungible token. There's only one. But shortly after that, they realized, okay, there are a lot of other digital items, digital goods within games or other applications that you're building that you might need multiple of the same thing that are still sort of, limited to a small supply. So a good example of this is if I had 1,000 flamethrowers in a game that all were, had the same performance, had the same stats, but just had a different serial number 1 to 1,000 to show which of the 1,000 unique flamethrowers that I got in that game, you could do that. Or if I had, 10,000 concert tickets that I was selling to a Taylor Swift concert, and each of those has a seat number and a row number and, a certain entry level, you could assign all of those details to the individual semi-fungible tokens, but the contract would still know, okay, these are all tickets to a Taylor Swift concert on this specific date. Another example, if I have 100 mana potions in a game, those could all be the same mana token that are then stackable and bundleable, and you can really do so much more with the semi-fungible token than that you really need. So I think the main reason for coming out and formally releasing SFTs, semi-fungible tokens, as part of the D-Goods standard is to really clarify for people that D-Goods will handle any digital goods, whether it's unique, it's a non-fungible token, or whether it's one of many and it's a semi-fungible token. Both of those can be sort of handled under that D-Goods standard. So it's really cool, and there's so much work being done. And like you said, super excited to have ITM Games coming on board as well.
I was excited for it because it serves a very specific purpose. So I think you gave the example of serial numbers. In one of the games that we're building with Dappiness, we have NFTs that you could win in the game or maybe even buy in the future. But we want to have the option that you can only use them a limited number of times. So you could use it on a per game basis, but we want to put caps on them so that they could they're just collectibles at that point because you can't actually use them in the game. So you would have all of the NFTs would be the exact same because they're the exact same item, we'll call it. But if I use the item 3 times and Rob uses the item once, then it has basically a counter on there of how many times it was used. And now they're slightly different items, but they're the exact same properties other than that. So that would be a good example of a semi-fungible token. And I can't remember, did you use the ticket example? How if you had like a general admission ticket, they just have number on those.
Like at Taylor Swift concert, you have your seat number, your row number. Maybe some are VIP passes, maybe some aren't, and you could even build in cool giveaway stuff where one of the people or 10 of the people that buy a Taylor Swift concert out of this batch have the option to then get upgraded for free to a backstage pass, and maybe that's handled just with a token. And you got that random token, and oh look, this is the one with the backstage pass built into the actual token or the ticket itself. So there's a lot that you can do.
So where do you draw the line with a semi-fungible token? Is it just there's like one variable that may change on it, but then everything else is the same? Or how does that work? Like where do you draw the limit on when it's semi-fungible compared to non-fungible and when to make that differentiation?
My understanding is that you can have basically as many differing attributes as you want. If this flamethrower is in the game 1,000 times, maybe each 1,000 flamethrowers all have randomly generated stats that are all slightly different associated with those unique tokens. So really, I think it's sort of up to the developer.
I think it's, at the end of the day, it's just terminology. As long as they're following the standardized format of DGoods, then they all have the same data format. Everything should play nice together, no matter how they define it in their own words.
Absolutely.
So NFTs, it seems like such a boring concept, but we've been incredibly excited about them lately, mostly because DGoods has been on top of it with putting out regular blog content and updates. Because there's a lot of development teams that are just busy programming and they're not like taking the time to do that. Sometimes engineers aren't the best communicators. But the guys at DGoods have been doing an incredible job. And lately, Shintai actually has been piquing my interest with NFTs.
Interesting.
It's been a while since we've talked about Shintai, but Shintai 2.0 is the next thing coming. David P., he's from ES42, right? I'm looking at his tweet here. He said recently on Twitter, and I'll put it on screen for those watching, we've finally nailed the utility of the checks model. It's mind-blowing in scope, but elegantly simple. Can't wait to publish out full details along with the upcoming launch of Shintai 2.0. People will see the potential we have with leasing all kinds of digital assets. Oh, we got a cat. They broke in again, Rob. But what they're doing is their Block One's motto has pretty much been this entire time: decentralize everything. Well, now Shintai is having their own motto, which is lease everything. And what they're talking about with leasing NFTs would be, Rob's a big gamer. He probably has more in-game items than he actually plans to use, and he's probably just hodling in-game items, and they're just collecting dust in his in-game backpack. So I see a value of that. I might want to rent one of Rob's in-game jet skis. So they're creating a market for things like this, and that's incredible. It's basically making anything rentable. Think about that in the physical world, how insane that would be. I mean, you can if you look far enough, but they're streamlining it and removing the friction and adding, like, I don't know how the markets will be made on stuff like this with such limited liquidity. But I'm excited for it because I love thinking of new ideas that I never really put much thought into before. And whenever it just like blows your mind, you have to like totally like start looking at things from a different perspective. And this is sort of one of those things where it's something that never existed before, and I have to kind of take the time to wrap my mind around what it actually means to be able to lease all of these different items.
Well, I think what's so powerful about it too is like, and I heard this on the Roundtable, shout out to those guys, the Roundtable podcast on YouTube, but they gave a really great example, which is that, if you lease, a Lamborghini to somebody, you're going to be worried that they're going to crash the Lamborghini or damage it, or maybe they'll steal it forever, but you really don't have any of those concerns when it comes to leasing a digital item, especially when it's leased through a smart contract that could automatically return it to somebody. So, if I'm leasing a digital Lamborghini in a game, maybe there's no chance for them to damage it. They can't really hurt the value of that item. And then at the end of the 2-day or 3-day or week or month, however long I lease it, at the end of that leasing period, that, the keys to that Lamborghini, that digital Lamborghini, are automatically transferred back to my wallet. And there's no way that the person that's leasing it from me can actually steal it or default on our agreement in any way. So it sort of protects, both the person that's leasing and also the person that is renting it from the person. They can't be screwed in some other way as well. So it's pretty cool. And so yeah, ultimately, I'm pretty excited for what Shintai 2.0 has coming, and I like the lease everything hashtag. So assuming that they can pull this off, I'm super excited for what the potential of that 2.0 platform has in store.
So before we move on, I have a few things to say about Shintai. One, I am also equally as excited. Two, I can't wait to get dates. And three, when are you guys going to vote for Cypherglass?
Somehow I knew that was coming.
I got to bring it up. So
Yeah.
This is real talk here, though. So I love what Shintai's doing. I think it's amazing technology. And at one point, their proxy held the voting power of 15 million votes. It currently sits at 1.5 million votes, so no one's really worried about it or talking about it. But they have proxy managers who decide on who gets voted in and who gets voted out. And whenever they rolled this program out, they had mentioned that they were going to re-vote or meet to talk about their votes every 30 days and then announce any changes that they made and the reasons why. And I noticed when researching this article, otherwise I wouldn't have brought it up, but it's been 2 months since they made their 30th vote selection. So I think it's about time to relook at who they're voting for, and if they're not going to change any of their votes, because they're all good teams. It's just there's more than 30 good block producers is the problem. But I just kind of think that you deserve to be in there for everything you've done, and you've actually done a lot as Cypherglass, as Rob Finch, as EOS Name Service, as everything EOS, as everything that you encompass. You've done so much even over the last 2 months that I think it's worth looking at again, and I think Cypherglass deserves to be as part of their proxy. But there's a lot of other proxies that are voting for you, though, so...
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I mean, I really appreciate that. And I think hopefully one day we will get the Shintai proxy. There have obviously been tons of people on Twitter and Telegram saying the same thing that you're saying, like, why haven't you voted for these guys? So hopefully maybe in this next time that they reconvene, they will add Cypherglass to that proxy. But in the meantime, like you said, we have tons of proxies that are already voting for us that I think we should highlight because they're doing some good in the
Shout them all out.
well.
There's a bunch of them.
Yeah, so
better take a deep breath before you start talking.
And this is not all inclusive. There are tons of great proxies outside of the few that I'm going to mention here that are also voting for Cypherglass and many other BPs. But just to go, sort of from the top of this list, we have Starkness, which is the biggest proxy on EOS right now. We have Investing with a Difference, Rahman, shout out to him. We have Brock Pierce 1, who is, of course, Brock Pierce. Thank you for voting for us as well. And Brock has been making some pretty cool content.
Oh, really good.
They just came out. Oh, it's been awesome. He has a new podcast called BP1. And they just had Eyal Herzog from Liquid EOS on a new series called Meet the Blockers, where they're talking to the block producers, figuring out how they got into crypto, how they got into EOS, their thoughts on the ecosystem. And Ben Sigmund from that same Brock Pierce podcast reached out and asked me to be on Meet the Blockers. So super excited to schedule that and get on the show as well.
Do you have a date for that or anything, or timeline?
I don't have a date yet. I know Brock was traveling for part of this week. But he's also expecting his a child soon with Crystal. So super exciting news coming out of them over there.
So congratulations. You might even have a little crypto baby. I forget what they already named it. It has some crypto name. Do you remember what it is?
No, I don't.
I think it might just be crypto. Now I got to look it up. Hold on.
That would be amazing if they named their baby Crypto. But either way, congrats to Brock Pierce and Crystal Rose on that. That's always super exciting to bring another life into the world. But moving on from them, Luke Stokes, awesome guy from EOS Stack, votes for us as well. And then Colin T. Crypto, sort of a recent convert from the Ethereum community who's made a lot of great videos on, Ethereum 2.0 and how it's delayed to 2021 in its full form, and how he was sort of shifting some of his portfolio from Ethereum into EOS, and now even has a proxy that has several million votes. I think they just crossed 2 million. So congrats to Colin on that milestone as well. And thank you to all of the other proxies as well. Ash Oro, Freedom Proxy, so many others that are all voting for us. So we sincerely appreciate your support and literally could not do it without you, since votes are what pay the bills.
I just want to backtrack because I love good video content. I've learned to love it and become trying my best to become a master of the craft, trying to get better.
Yeah.
And I love what the BP1 YouTube channel was bringing to the table. A lot of people look to us as some of the better EOS content out there. And also EOS Radio, great guys, great show. I always learn a lot in Investing with a Difference, IWAD, Colin T. Crypto. But this is just another layer. This is like a governance-themed show where they're going to dive deep into referendums, the proxying, and then the Meet the Blockers. The block producer interviews are awesome. Are you actually doing yours in person, Rob, or is it going to be remote? Because their first one was in person.
Yeah, I'm not sure yet. It may be in person, maybe remote, but we're still working out the details. So I would be, willing to fly over there just for that episode. So we'll get it all set up, though. I'm talking with Ben in Telegram.
One last shout out. I want to shout out whoever's actually making the videos after they're filmed, because I don't think it's Ben or Brock. So whoever's doing those videos, shout out to you because you deserve it. You need to roll your name on the credits because you're doing a really good job.
Definitely.
You were at the EOS New York meetup after we recorded last week.
Yeah.
And then we went back in time because the episode aired after you got back. But
Yeah.
How was it?
I had a ton of fun, honestly. It was so cool, and the whole reason I went was just to meet more people in the EOS community. I love, like, when people come up to me and they're like, "Hey, I watch your videos. Hey, I watch everything EOS. Like, I listen to the podcast." That just, like, it means so much to have people come up and actually want to take a selfie or want to ask me a question about EOS and what's coming. So it was just so cool, and the energy there was so good. Of all of these people, I think they had close to 100 people, maybe a little bit more, sitting there learning about EOS, some of them downloading an EOS wallet for the very first time at the event. But a couple things I wanted to highlight. I think Sam from Galaxy Digital gave an awesome presentation that I initially didn't expect to be so gaming focused. But obviously Galaxy Digital does have some big investments in gaming through Mythical Games and High Fidelity, all building on EOS. So he kind of focused on the metaverse, which was very cool and not really what you expect to see from a guy in a blazer that's, you know, generally this typical finance guy talking about the metaverse. But that was awesome. We saw Rob Behnke from Nougat sort of unveil that the alpha is coming very soon for their decentralized, incentivized version of GitHub that, you know, won the San Francisco EOS Hackathon. So that was cool news. I tweeted about that. And then also from EOS New York themselves, we saw the design reveal. We saw what their Metro hardware wallet specifically for EOS will look like. Very cool little USB design, should just pop into your computer. And that, I believe, is coming in Q2 of this year as well. So there was a ton of announcements, a ton of great stuff going on, and so many cool people that came up to me and you know, shouted me out for the event. I have to grab something for this. There's something very important that I have to show.
This isn't in our notes here, so I really have no idea what Rob's going to bring here.
All right, so at these events, I always expect to meet cool people. And I met a gentleman by the name of Alex Garzon, who actually gave me this. He gave me two of these, but it's a 3D printed chestahedron, basically the EOS logo, which I just thought was awesome. He had a ton of little boxes of these and was giving them out to people and had hit me up ahead of time saying, hey, you know, I want to give you one of these. So thank you, Alex, for that. I really do appreciate it. That kind of made the event that much cooler for me. So that was awesome. But then in addition to that, there's a guy named Bonds Manifest, B-O-N-Z.
Oh, I got one too. Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry for interrupting, but yes, I don't have mine in front of me. I forgot to put it on my desk.
I'm making a separate video about this. That's actually what this is back here. This is a 1 of 3 like hand-blown glass limited edition, but this is also hand-blown glass, like a full-on.
Keep talking, Rob. I'm getting mine.
So pretty awesome stuff. I have one of these in another color combination that's kind of like the Cypherglass colors. But if you want EOS art, obviously this is hand-blown glass. They're one-of-a-kind pieces. Pretty amazing. But Bonds Manifest, B-O-N-Z M-A-N-I-F-E-S-T. He's a guy on Telegram. You can get in touch with him. Hop into the Everything EOS Telegram at t.me/everything_EOS. And we'll make an introduction to you for him if you want one of these. So very, very cool to see kind of this contrast of, you know, you have one that's 3D printed. It's much smaller. This is kind of made by a machine. And then one that's made by hand by another member of the EOS community. And I paid for these in EOS as well, which was just so cool and sort of completes that circle. So you got one here as well, Zach?
Oh, yeah. The Macho EOS man made a return. I had to go into the same storage I keep my costumes. So yeah, I got the black and yellow one, which it's not only the Everything EOS colors, but it is also the colors of the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Pittsburgh Pirates, and the Pittsburgh Penguins.
That looks great. The black and yellow is so cool.
I couldn't leave it on my desk because I'm afraid the cats are going to knock it over and break it. So I have to.
I have a secret. I put this one is kind of like stuck to the desk back here. I have double-sided tape that I like put on the bottom and then put around like the places that I could, just so that the cats don't do the same thing. The other one, the Cypherglass color one, is in my bedroom, and I have that on like this little table, so it's all taped down as well, just to be safe with these cats running around.
Man, he's gonna get hit up with a bunch of orders, but that's great. He was telling me how he at one point, like early on before mainnet launch, he launched like a EOS like art store or something like that. So
cool. Yeah, he's a great dude. I had the chance to meet with him after the EOS New York event. We all went to this bar and just hung out for a while. Talked with Rob a lot there, but also talked with Bonds, and he's just such a cool guy, so passionate, so friendly, so positive. So huge shout out to him for making this awesome art.
Man, I feel like I keep forgetting people to shout out. So Team Nougat, you hung out with Rob Behnke from Nougat. I just want to, anyone watching who is even somewhat interested in testing Nougat, they are still accepting beta users, I believe. So cool. Go on their website and sign up. They're always looking for feedback. And it sounds like what Rob Finch here said is that they have some releases coming probably in the next couple weeks, couple months.
Yeah.
So I'm sure
I
they're going to
think,
need people to test that.
Q2 as well is when that alpha is going to go live, and they're kind of making this developer social network. It's a better version of GitHub basically, so it's very cool. But in addition to all that, we have a bunch of future events that I'm going to be at as well.
Oh yeah.
So just to run through those, South by Southwest obviously has a gaming track. They have sort of a smaller crypto track, but Rudy from Mythical Games, huge shout out to him, has invited me out to the Blankos sort of launch party event where they're going to release a gameplay trailer from the game. They're releasing exclusive Blankos, which I'm like so hyped about. If you follow Play Mythical on Twitter or Play Blankos on Twitter, they've been tweeting out these exclusive, like, one of 1,000, one of 600, one of 900 different Blankos. They're going to have 9 different exclusive ones at the event. So I'm hoping I can collect all 9. That's like secretly the reason why I really wanted to go.
Oh my God.
But I'm super excited about it. I can't wait to see. They're basically leading the South by Southwest gaming track. They have thousands of people going to this initial opening event. So just like they did when they announced this at the Gamers' Choice Awards in front of 2 or 3 million people at initial trailer, they're launching this second gameplay trailer in front of so many people as well. So huge props to the Mythical Games team.
They don't go small.
The games on EOS. Yeah,
they don't go
big,
small.
sure.
They don't go small.
Yeah.
So is this going to be the first time you've met Rudy?
This will be the first time I met him in person. We've spoken a lot, over Telegram on different calls here and there, obviously working together on D-Goods. But yeah, first time I'll be meeting him and some of the other Mythical Games guys in person. So super stoked for that.
I mean, I'm going off script again here, Rob, but I love stories. So I remember whenever we first heard about Mythical Games and you had like more knowledge of the background of like Blizzard and Activision and stuff. And you kind of had that initial connection to Rudy, it seemed like you were already talking to him in a PM like as soon as they announced. So how did that I don't know, working friendship like come about? And it seems like you guys have been collaborating a lot lately. And I think it's really, really cool because there's other people in this ecosystem that I've seen you connect with like that. And they're typically gamers. And it's so interesting that how many people in this space come from a gaming background, going back to Yao from Liquid EOS and all that, Brock, Brendan. Yeah,
absolutely. And they all were sort of involved on like the selling gold side of World of Warcraft, whereas Rudy was involved actually making World of Warcraft and worked on several of the expansions that I've played. So that was really my main interest in reaching out when I saw, part of this team has worked on World of Warcraft before, a game that I've put hundreds and hundreds of days of playtime into. Don't really play it so much anymore. The recent Activision Blizzard, that's a whole nother tangent. But
10
Rudy
more
himself
videos.
is an awesome guy. Yeah, exactly. He's an awesome guy, worked on World of Warcraft, some of the games that I played, some of the expansions I played. So I just wanted to reach out and, learn about why he was coming to EOS and some of the games that they were building. And I think we really hit it off. And then, shortly thereafter, a few weeks or months later, he reached out about D-Goods and I linked them with Pixios and sort of came on board with that whole initiative. So it's been super awesome and I can't wait to meet him in person and hopefully get those exclusive Blankos.
I think that's the value you bring to this ecosystem, Rob. And I'm getting there too with my network as well. It's like you're able to put all these pieces together that might have taken months to connect on their own, but you're able to give it to them like instantaneously and get everyone working together because all of this stuff being done in silos. And it's,
definitely.
It's not just you. There's a lot of other people in this space that do it, but it's like a superpower, I think. And I love hearing stuff like this, especially after last week, just based on the theme of our episode, you kind of put an open message out to anyone developing on any other platform or who hasn't selected a platform yet to reach out to you. Have you gotten anyone directly because of that video, do you think?
I have. You have a couple meetings scheduled. One that got just postponed slightly, but super excited about it. Some people have reached out over email, on Telegram and Twitter DMs, kind of like on every platform people have reached out. But again, if you're looking to build on EOS, you're maybe building on another platform that isn't quite working for you, reach out to me, Rob at Cypherglass, CYPHERGLASS.com. And we'll schedule a free consulting call and sort of show you how EOS could help you move your business or your DApp forward.
That's awesome. And it was because of the video? Because I know you've been doing this kind of on your own for a long time, but that message helped? Awesome.
It definitely helped. I think it's something we should mention regularly because anything that I can do, people ask me a lot, what's your day-to-day look like? A portion of my day obviously is focused on, Cypherglass content and everything EOS stuff and broader business strategies at EOS Name Service and some other projects that we have behind the scenes as well. But a significant portion of my day is just spent on trying to help grow the EOS ecosystem. So if that's, linking Rudy with other people to join the D-Goods initiative, or if that's doing free consulting calls with projects to build on EOS, or maybe it's having a call with a fund who's looking to increase their position in EOS and they have some questions about the current state of the ecosystem. There are so many different things that I'm doing on a daily basis to try to add value to EOS. So that's where a big chunk of my day goes as well. And this is a huge part of that, something I love doing. So please reach out if you're interested.
That's awesome. I love hearing stuff like that because I don't have this close relationship with as many other people. I have good relationships with a lot of people in this ecosystem, but I love asking stories from you.
Definitely.
I interrupted you a little bit. We didn't get through all your events. You're also going to be at an SVK crypto event in London. When's that?
Yeah, very busy month. So March 26th, I think it's 6 to 8 p.m. London time. SVK Crypto is doing another cool event. They usually have a huge portion of the city of London, the London crypto community, come out. So super excited to see those guys again and interact with the community across the pond.
Shout out. I've been shouting out all the content creators. Amazing content from the guys at SVK Crypto. They do a daily 15-minute of crypto fame podcast. So if you want a crypto daily, these are your guys. And then they also do some really, really high-end video content whenever they travel abroad and things like that. They come back and someone in their office is getting to work on the video editing, but they put out some really good stuff. So if you guys are still thirsty for content after watching everything EOS and Brock Pierce won, SVK Crypto's got you.
Definitely. And then
one more event.
Last event for the future. So Kevin, while I was at the event, Kevin Rose from EOS New York asked if I would come on and be one of the speakers at the next EOS New York event. It seems like they're going to do these every other month. So tentatively in April, I will be speaking at the next EOS New York event, presenting something about EOS, something hopefully pretty interesting for everybody there that will be attending. So stay tuned for more details on that. There's no official date set yet, but should be sometime in April.
I have an interesting story, also not in our notes. Things just keep popping in my head today, Rob.
I know, right? This is great.
What was that guy's name that posted the video of you? It was like he was just using like a selfie stick. I want to give him a shout out if you can think of his name. Is it Barry?
Oh, I know who you're talking about. He wears the same glasses that the guy from Bulletproof Coffee wears.
Well,
I'm blanking on his name.
Shout out to this guy.
Yeah.
Because he talked to you and he talked to some of the EOS New York guys, and he made a comment. One of the EOS New York guys, I think it was Rick, he mentioned how it's about 1 year ago they did their very first meetup. Yeah. So if that's the case, I remember when you and your brother Mike were out of the office, because at the time you were still with ICO Alert, and you guys went on a trip for a few days, and you said you were going to New York for some EOS event. And this is March or February. So we were really into EOS. We were we were like 2 weeks away from starting the podcast. I think you came back and was motivated to do it. Yeah. But that's crazy. You were basically part of history in a way, because that was a lot of times a lot of people met in person for the first time. And
it's so funny because I met Kevin at that event, and he was meeting so many people for the first time at that event, and he obviously didn't know that we were planning to launch a block producer as well at that time. But I mentioned this to him at the event I was just at. Like, by the way, I was at that first event and we met. Like, he told me about the undersea cable map of like the internet and stuff. He's like, "What, for real?" So it was just funny that he didn't realize I was there. But if you go back and check that guest list on Meetup, I was definitely there.
That's awesome. So I'll probably be at the one in April. I don't think it's been announced publicly yet.
Probably.
I will be.
There were so many people. You say like, "Oh, I'm Zach Gall. My network's not as strong," but there were so many people that came up to me saying, "Hey, is Zach here? Like, I want to talk to Zach." Like, so a lot of people want to see him, and you got to come to the next event. It's going to be awesome.
I was so bummed out to not be at the last event. So I'm 100% going to be there. I don't really think there's anything in April that would ever prevent me. It was a really weird circumstance last week with my wife being out of town at the same time. But yeah, I will be there. So Kevin Rose, let me freaking know. I will mark it on my calendar and book my travel early. I will. Perfect. I would love to meet the EOS community. So you said there's like 100 people there? It's pretty good.
Roughly.
That's a really big event.
They fill up a great event. There's like an Amazon Web Services like meetup event basically where they use it. They have a bunch of screens, so even if you're in the back, you can still understand what's going on. It's really well done, and you can ask questions to all the people that are speaking, which is pretty cool.
EOS New York. So whenever you went to that meetup 1 year ago, could you sense that they were going to be a top block producer at the time, or were they just like, you probably didn't meet any in person at the time yet, but did they stand out back then?
Yeah, I mean, I think they stood out mostly in the fact that they were the first block producer to ever announce. Like, they were the first that came out and said, "Hey, we're going to run a BP," and nobody else had ever announced at that time. So I think that has done a lot for them, just because they've had the most time out of anybody to really make their mark, to show that they're committed to EOS, and that's probably why they've produced the most blocks on the EOS mainnet out of anybody, if you look at a chart that we'll pull up here later in the episode. But it makes a ton of sense. They've had the longest time to engage with the community and have done some pretty great things, so shout out to them.
Yeah, I feel like every week we're talking about them, and we're not really doing it on like we like the guys there. Like Kevin's a cool guy, real nice. I like helping good people, but we don't do this on purpose. They're just always doing good stuff, and that's the transition into the next topic. We missed it about 2 weeks ago, but the EOS Alliance is transitioning from a traditional nonprofit organization with a temporary board, and they're transitioning into EOS DAO. Which, for those not familiar, DAO is a decentralized autonomous organization. And that initiative is actually being led by EOS New York in partnership with one of the core teams from EOS DAC. So they're not saying EOS DAC as a whole, but like a group within EOS DAC. And there's probably others involved as well. But I'm pretty excited about this because I think we've seen the community's response to, I guess, giving any one person or one group any type of authority or spending power. No one trusts anybody in the network.
Yeah.
And I think coming out as a DAO is actually going to, at the end of the day, give the EOS Alliance a lot, I don't want to say authority because they're independent, but it's going to, I think it's going to help us.
Some more legitimacy.
Yeah, and more fair. No one's going to complain about like it being a hand-picked board. But what are your thoughts on this, besides it just being a good initiative?
I think, I haven't had a ton of time to look into the very, very specifics. I know that, Thomas Cox stepped down as, I guess, one of the interim leaders, the interim director, and now had that $4 million investment at Strongblock. So congrats to him and, the team over there that's working on that enterprise solution to bring enterprises onto EOS. So that's exciting. But other than that, I think it's a step in the right direction, right? If EOS is a platform, not just for dApps, but also for DAOs, these decentralized autonomous organizations or entities or companies, whatever you want to call them, if it is this platform, I think we need to lead by example. And what better way to set an example than to lead the EOS Alliance as this DAO that, is looking out for the best interest of the network, is kind of pushing initiatives like Rex and, the different referenda that we're voting on. So I think it's awesome. And it makes a ton of sense to go out there and say, hey, we're going to start this DAO and sort of show people how it's done.
All right, moving along. This one actually involves us in a way. Coinpayments.com. They are a payments company for crypto payments. They just recently added EOS to their list of 1,240 other coins they support. So you want to explain kind of what this is and why it's meaningful to us?
Yeah, so if you run, an e-commerce website on Shopify or WooCommerce or whatever it is, you're selling T-shirts, you're selling, whatever it is online, you can actually accept crypto through Coin Payments. They have cool little plugins for different shopping carts, and you can accept Bitcoin and Ethereum and Litecoin. And like you said, so many other coins, but it wasn't until now that they've actually added support for EOS. So now, if you have a store out there, an e-commerce store, you can actually accept EOS and get EOS as payments from users. And it's pretty awesome to see that functionality, that additional support sort of coming online.
And why is that relevant to us, Rob? Don't you have a T-shirt on that we haven't really announced anything publicly about any of this stuff we have on our merch store?
We haven't announced it publicly, but on everythingeos.io, a little birdie told me that there's a new merch shop set up where you can buy merch like this hoodie. And I got to say, this is not an exaggeration. This is literally, and I almost never use the word literally because people use it incorrectly, but this is literally the softest hoodie that I own. Like the inside of this thing is kind of insane. I've been wearing it for a couple days. I don't really want to admit it, but it's super comfy. You can check out this. We got phone cases, we have hats, we have other shirts. It really is just a way for you to support the show and get some EOS merch, as a result.
But we got to get through a few more topics, and I think we could wrap up. You want to just run through them quick? You want to go back and forth? How do you want to do it?
Yeah, ITAM Games. I'll take the first one. You take second. I'll take the third. We'll close. So ITAM Games just came out with a Future of Gaming trailer saying that free-to-play games are dead, basically, and that play-to-earn games, meaning you can play and earn tokens or earn some kind of value, are the future. They are, again, releasing 20 games on the EOS mainnet this year and put out this trailer to kind of get everybody hyped up. And it looks like we'll get our first game at the end of this month or the beginning of next month. So super excited about that. What do we have from you, Zach?
All right, we got... we've talked about it before. Peter Kay on the developer series. Oh, I don't think we published a video yet, but we're doing something on the Elemental Battles. So let me backtrack. We've talked about the Elemental Battles tutorial that Block One put out back, I believe, in November or October. It's a great entry-level tutorial into EOS.io to deploy your first web application. But what Liquid Apps just put out this morning that we're recording this on Thursday, it's called VRAM Elemental Battles. And they basically took the Elemental Battles repo that Block One had developed and released publicly, and they they integrated VRAM and swapped it with the regular EOS mainnet RAM. And now you could actually deploy the whole game for pennies, essentially, compared to what it was before, because there was a lot of RAM that was needed to store the data of this game. And I think games are, right now at least, early on, are the applications that stand to gain the most from Liquid dApps and bringing down those RAM costs. I think the more complex business applications will come, but I think in the immediate future, and I know there's EverPD also is able to be helped with this, but I think the major beneficiaries are going to be the games. So outside of the elemental battles, there was a paragraph within this blog post that got me excited. I actually texted Rob as soon as I read this, and I'm going to read it out loud and I'll put it on the screen. It says, IPFS as a decentralized front-end solution, and this is on Liquid dApps. Instead of storing user-facing application front ends, and this is like your HTML files, the stuff you see on a website, on a centralized server, which becomes responsible for delivering the content anytime it is requested. What the dApp network allows is it allows developers to register an application front end on IPFS, which is a distributed file storing system. And it allows you to store all of your website front-end assets on this distributed IPFS network. In September 2017, Block One put out a white paper on EOS.io storage, as it was called. And this is basically a hard drive for EOS mainnet, which would store like all these files like this. And I wasn't able to find the video to be able to play a clip for this podcast, but on one of those, when Block One used to do those like Apple-style videos back in 2017 and early 18, Dan would say once on EOS.io, a developer will be able to deploy a web application without ever deploying a web server, and that's because these applications are stateless. Their state is on the blockchain, and the missing piece is all the other stuff, your HTML files on your front end, your JavaScript files, your image files, your video files. Where does all of that live? And this is the solution to it. And dApp Network and Liquid dApps, based on this paragraph, it seems like they're going to be solving these problems very soon. And I'm excited. Peter Kay from Dappiness, as you mentioned earlier, whenever we read this morning, it blew our minds, because now we kind of got to pivot on some of the stuff we're already close to wrapping up, because this IPFS hosting our files on an IPFS system without degrading like speed or reliability is very interesting to us, to say the least.
Definitely. Yeah, super exciting stuff coming from that team. And then to wrap it up with this final piece of news, we have EOS FinX, of course, which we mentioned earlier. Just to make a note that alpha or beta version, I think it is, should be out in the next couple weeks. So stay tuned for that.
I'm excited.
Yeah, so much happening. I think that's all we have for this show. Is that right, Zach?
I think that's it for this week, Rob.
Awesome. Let's wrap it up.
All right. So once again, we'll see you guys next week. You'll probably see me. Actually, we're doing more videos now. You'll probably see us in a day.
Yeah.
Probably the next day too. So we're just going to keep coming at you. But once again, I'm Zach Gall.
I'm Rob Finch. This is Everything
EOS.
Go EOS!
I wonder if we got that. Sounded good.
See you next week.